center camera needs to be. 1, 2. 1, 2. Check. 1, 2. 1, 2. Check. 1, 2. Hey, 1, 2. Check. 1, 2.
Hello, hello. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me up top? Yay. yeah, thumbs up. Okay, great. Well, welcome to the 2022 commencement ceremonies for the professional degrees of Master of Science in Occupational Therapy and the Doctorate Occupational Therapy, along with recognition, the Rehabilitation and Participation Science PhD. We will start the processional just at 1 o'clock. All of your students are lined up and ready to go, ready to graduate. We will be coinciding with an online broadcast of this ceremony on YouTube. A link can be found on ot.wusel.edu, so if you have friends or family that couldn't make it today, they can follow along on YouTube. I'd like to thank the Graham Chapel and Media Services staff for making it possible for our simulcast of these ceremonies. A few housekeeping items. If you haven't found them already, the restrooms are located downstairs. There are steps in the rear, an elevator, and steps located right here to my right. So elevator and steps right here, regular steps in the back. Each pew should hold 11 people, so try to make room for anybody that looks like they're kind of straggling in. Please plan to take photographs along the side of the wall to my right. And at the end of the ceremonies, you exit out either the rear or the side door right here. Please remember to turn off any of your ringers, texts, etc. We don't want to interrupt. And thank you for your attention and enjoy the ceremonies. Shannon Eckhoff will be sitting up here in the front row. She's in a black top, white and black skirt. She will stand when it is time to rise for the procession of our graduating students. So if you are able to stand, we invite you to stand and to congratulate our students. Thank you.
Just his sleeves got tripped up in them. Good around the front.
Along with his speech.
Everything's good. That's exactly what I was wondering. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the faculty and staff, I'd like to welcome you to the in-person commencement ceremony for the program in occupational therapy. My name is Dr. Lisa Connor, and I direct the program. In that role, I've had the privilege to work with our talented students, faculty, and staff. Thank you for joining this ceremony to celebrate the class of 2022. This is my first in-person graduation since I became the director in summer of 2019. So forgive all of us up here if we have a few little mistakes. We're out of practice. I want to take this moment to thank the graduation committee who developed, planned, and executed this event. Shannon Eckhoff. Happy birthday, Shannon. Sarah Alsop. And just wave. Rebecca Colson. Bridget Mack. Michelle Burhorst. Abby King. Loretta Chavana. Kelly Walker, and Robin Hattori. I also want to thank in advance the musicians for being here to celebrate our day with us. Thank you so much. We appreciate everyone's hard work and dedication to creating an experience with meaning for our graduating students. And thanks to Stephen Mack for technical support. First, I'd like to acknowledge that although we were able to meet in person for graduation this year, our ever-present companion, the COVID-19 virus, has caused us to change and modify our plans throughout your entire educational experience here at WashU. The need to adjust, adapt, and to remain flexible has been a requirement of these past several years, but this is nothing new to occupational therapists. Our profession calls us to be continually ready to adjust to circumstances and to forge a path ahead. We have done so in the program, and you will be asked to do so to help your future clients, colleagues, and perhaps even students. They will depend on you to lead the path forward for them in uncertain times in their lives and help them adjust to new circumstances. One of my favorite quotes by William Arthur Ward comes to mind here. The pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects it to change. The realist adjusts the sails. You've been trainees in the Sail Adjusters Club, but I want to welcome all of you to full membership. Graduates, it's my very special honor to welcome you and your families and friends. You are the 104th graduating class of the program in occupational therapy, and the third since I became director of the program. It's been a privilege to get to know your class and to see your work throughout the years. We're thrilled to be able to resume more traditional ways of celebrating your achievements as soon-to-be graduates of one of the top OT programs in the country. I speak for the faculty and staff when I say that we are all proud of your accomplishments and appreciate the experience to have, grown with you. Now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Christine Berg, who has served as our interim director of the Division of Professional Education since September of 2020. Dr. Berg will announce the student awards and scholarships, but before she does so, I'd like to take a moment to thank her for her work that she's done the past almost 2 years. In this leadership role, Christine has been dedicated to furthering our educational and DE&I missions. This summer, we will welcome Dr. Lennon Graho to the program as the new director of the Division of Professional Education. Thanks to Christine's efforts, he will inherit a position perfectly poised for change and growth. As the program director and as a colleague, thank you, Christine, for your service in this role.
Thank you, Lisa, and welcome. Today we celebrate the graduation of students from 3 degree programs: the PhD in Rehabilitation and Participation Science, the Doctor of Occupational Therapy, and the Master of Science in Occupational Therapy. Each of the clinical degree cohorts includes a class marshal chosen by their peers. Please acknowledge when I call your name so that we can see where you're sitting. The class marshal of the Doctor of Occupational Therapy degree is Olivia Lisette DePaul. The class marshal of the Master of Science in Occupational Therapy degree is Oliver Gray Carnazzo. Each year, the program awards the Excellence in Student Research Award to recognize a doctoral and master's student whose work will enhance practice. Faculty nominate the students, and a panel of faculty rate their work. I'm happy to announce that this year, Ashley Marie Flynn, Kaylee Marie Soku, Erin Elizabeth Tormé are recognized for their paper entitled An Observational Study of Personal and Environmental Factors Associated with Attendance at Community-Based Adaptive Fitness Center for Adults with Physical Disabilities. And Rachel Yewe Grays is recognized for her paper titled Apathy and Residual Neurological Impairment Are Associated with Community Reintegration After Mild Stroke. Ashley, Kaylee, Erin, Rachel, please acknowledge where you are so we can recognize your accomplishments. The program also awards scholarships that recognize students for outstanding performance and leadership. Many of the scholarships are listed in your program, and they were awarded to students upon admission. In addition to those, there are a few competitive awards given to offset the cost of fieldwork. Students submit application packets, which are reviewed by the Admissions Scholarship Committee. I'm happy to announce the recipients of this year's fieldwork scholarships. The Agnes Fielding Praman Scholarship is awarded to students from the occupational therapy program who show exceptional promise as an OT educator or potential for leadership in the profession. The students must also demonstrate a strong commitment to the values and knowledge of occupational therapy. Today, we have 3 outstanding students receiving this scholarship. Please acknowledge where you are when I call your name. Elizabeth Lisette DePaul, Grace Ann Franco, and Stephanie Judisky. Congratulations to all of our scholarship and award recipients. Now I would like to ask Stephanie Judisky to come forward to introduce the commencement speaker.
I promise I'm strong. Ugh. All righty. Hello, all. Let me do one of these real quick. It is my honor and privilege to introduce this year's commencement speaker. After a spinal cord injury changed his life, our next speaker is one that dedicates his ambitions to helping people recognize that they are capable of far more than they believe. As an innovator, elite para-athlete, and longtime wheelchair user, he has the unique ability to generate novel solutions to big problems. In 2016, at the age of 26, he started his first company, a telehealth startup to help people in underserved communities. Now, he's pursuing his Master of Business Administration at Stanford, where he continues to transform lives by sharing his unique life experiences with others to help people thrive despite unexpected challenges. And just like occupational therapists, this individual helps people develop the skills and strategies necessary to overcome obstacles and accelerate their journey to independence. He's a true testament to what resilience, mental agility, and maintaining a positive mindset can do. After trying out for the U.S. Paralympic wheelchair rugby team for 5 consecutive years, he became one of the most integral players and was regarded as the best class 0.5 player in the world for most of his Olympic career. Most admirably, he's become one of the strongest advocates and leaders for people with disabilities both on the court and in his community. Please help me welcome 2-time Team USA wheelchair rugby Paralympic medalist, ability coach, speaker, and entrepreneur, Jeff Butler.
Thank you for that incredible introduction, and I apologize. This is going to be kind of like an OT thing as I try to get rid of the pages as I read them. So I'm having flashbacks. I'm honored to be with you today at commencement from a program that holds incredible significance in my life. Almost 20 years ago, I flew into St. Louis in an air ambulance from my hometown in Indiana. 2 weeks prior, I had fractured C5 and 6, and my neck still wasn't stable. Upon arrival, I had a spinal fusion without complication at Barnes-Jewish Hospital, and I had no idea what would come next. As I woke up from surgery, my parents mentioned something about starting physical rehab, but at the time I had no idea what that meant, let alone the role that my therapists would play in my recovery. The one thing I did know is that I was ready for whatever it would take to get my life back. From the moment I arrived at the Rehab Institute of St. Louis, I was always pushing the limits of what my body could handle, advocating for treatments and pursuing milestones far before I was ready for them. One stark example of my impatience is the very brief memory I have of sitting up after that surgery, of sitting up for the first time since breaking my neck almost a month prior. Or, should I say, I remember my therapist counting down from 3, sitting up with their help, the blood quickly rushing away from my head, immediately passing out, waking up a few seconds later, once again lying on my back. Okay, maybe I wasn't quite ready to sit up just yet. In spite of that early setback, I quickly mastered sitting up, conquering the very first step in my long road to independence. But as I continued with rehab, the journey in front of me grew more daunting. It took me 4 weeks to sit up. How much time and effort would it take to get my old life back? 6 weeks prior, I'd been the starting quarterback of my middle school football team. Now I couldn't even feed myself. The distance I would have to travel just to regain some sense of normalcy was terrifying. I took small comfort in knowing that I had the best resources on my side. I was fortunate to be at a top rehab facility right down the road, and I had plenty of grit and just enough patience to put in the work. I was surrounded by an unbelievable support system in my family and in my therapists. Even still, the uncertainty of the future was a crushing burden. Would I ever feed myself again? Would girls still like me even though I used the wheelchair? Would I be able to dress myself? Maybe even walk? More than any class that has come before, you, the class of 2022, are uniquely equipped to connect with your future patients. Any functional recovery, whether from a serious injury or a minor condition, is an exercise in managing adversity and uncertainty. Something you all experienced firsthand going through school during peak COVID. Your patients will be in various states of acceptance, motivation, reluctance, dismay. And your job will be to guide them through their journey of recovery. Now, I imagine you all learned many lessons in the last 2 years, or 4 years, that are similar to those that I learned navigating the uncertainty and adversity of recovering from a broken neck. I'd like to share with you 2 of my favorites. Number 1, see opportunity in adversity. 3 days after breaking my neck, my uncle came to visit me in the hospital. He burst through the door, began teasing me for not rising to greet him, and suggested that I was simply faking all this to skip school. After pretending to adjust my IV machine, much to the terror of my nurses, my uncle and I had a great chat about absolutely nothing related to my injury. The way my uncle interacted with me that day was a breath of fresh air from what I had been experiencing. Friends and family's hushed whispers and everyone handling me with white gloves, all afraid to say the wrong thing. Toward the end of our talk, my uncle told me, "You can't see this now, but this is going to unlock some incredible opportunities." Imagine that. Here I was, 13 years old, lying flat on my back in the hospital, and my uncle was rambling on about opportunities. It turns out he was right. And I can draw a straight line from what I have accomplished today to that conversation we had and the insight that he shared with me. At its core, he was showing me that when life gets hard and you're facing incredible adversity, there is no better time to grow. There were so many times throughout my journey when it would have been easier to quit, give in, and accept my limitations. The one time I dropped the plate on the floor of a restaurant trying to feed myself. The first time I fell out of my chair trying to transfer, and the fourth time I was rejected at Team USA tryouts. Sue is one of the coaches who did that. Instead, following my uncle's advice, I flipped the narrative. When life throws you a challenge, you should flip the narrative too. I was a very average athlete before my injury, and I never would have achieved the athletic success I have today without breaking my neck. This thing that seemed so awful turned into the single most powerful and formative moment of my life. Sometimes your life is going to be really hard. When that time comes, take a step back and look for opportunities in the challenges you're facing. Because you never know when that challenge and your response might just be the most powerful and formative moment of your life. Number 2, decide, then act. Dealing with uncertainty requires us to make decisions with incomplete information. When I was a 13-year-old patient here in St. Louis, my uncertainty was about my functional ability. How could I plan or make decisions for my future when I didn't know if I would ever be able to live independently or thrive in the workplace? Uncertainty for you may have been the concern about starting or staying in school during a global pandemic. You may have even asked yourself, what is the world going to look like when I graduate? How is the role of healthcare changing, and is this still the right choice for me? When I'm faced with an important decision but don't have the clarity I want, I found it's best to at least gather all the data that is available. I do a lot of my own due diligence, spend some time thinking about the possible outcomes, how I would feel about those outcomes, and then I sit on those feelings for a minute. Maybe I sleep on it. Hopefully, by morning, my brain, my heart, and my gut are pointing in the same direction. Gathering the information is easy. Making the decision is harder. It takes more courage. But having that information, however incomplete, should give you enough confidence in your choice to decide, then act. Armed with this information that you have, trust yourself and do what makes sense for you and for your future patients. And remember, at the end of the day, indecision is almost always worse than a wrong decision. This strategy has never failed me. It is surreal being back here in St. Louis. where my story began so many years ago. Surrounded by current and future occupational therapists, I'm reminded of the people who supported me during my time up the road at Tristle. I'm reminded of my first day on the floor, being pushed into the therapy room and seeing so many other people using chairs who I would go on to learn from. I'm reminded of my nurses who cared for me when I caught MRSA from a dirty machine. I'm reminded of my family who came together, surrounded me with love for a big family Thanksgiving away from home. And more than anything, I'm reminded of my occupational therapist, Lori, and her devious, but effective, repetitive exercise used to improve my dexterity. Why would I want to put my shoes back on after I just took them off, Lori? Throughout your careers, you will have an incredible impact on the lives of your patients and their families. The bittersweet truth is that you will never know the true scope of your actions and the effect of your touch on so many people. There may be a few treasured reunions, but the vast majority will fade into memories. You'll look back on your favorite patients and wonder, what are they doing now? Regardless of what they're doing, the answer to that question will always be that they are better for having had you in their lives. So, class of 2022, congratulations on finishing the easy part. What comes next is a massive responsibility. You will change lives. You will give hope, and you will help people heal, adjust, and recover. Lean into empathy and bring in your own lived experiences. I'm confident that my OT, Lori, had no idea that she was sending me down a path to independence that would include 2 Paralympic medals. But when I look back at my own recovery and where I started, flat on my back as a 13-year-old kid, I will always remember the role she played. Never lose sight of the responsibility you're entrusted with. And never underestimate the mark that you will leave on this world.
Thank you, Jeff, for sharing your story and lessons learned. Great advice for our graduates. Now I would like Megan Lailili Prophet to come forward to introduce the faculty speaker.
Hello all. Let's see if we can get this to stay. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Steve Taft to you today. Early in his OT career, Dr. Taft worked within pediatrics in the Special School District of St. Louis. He was there for over 10 years. In 2007, he began his higher education debut, becoming an assistant professor at St. Louis University. Shortly thereafter, he joined the Washington University Program in Occupational Therapy as the Associate Director of Professional Programs. As an OT researcher, Dr. Taft has mentored over 24 occupational therapy students in their research related to innovations in education, disability, and creating safe, inclusive learning environments. I can personally attest to his individualized approach and willingness to investigate concepts that are important to the students he mentors. In addition to occupational therapy students, Dr. Taft has worked with a number of healthcare students and professionals outside of occupational therapy in his role as an instructor and facilitator. He has served with several councils and programs, including the Education Programs Leadership Council, Disability Oversight Committee, Washington University Teaching Physicians Pathway, Introduction to Health Professions courses, Diversity, Inclusion, and Health Disparities courses, among others. Dr. Taft has served within several committees of the Center for Interprofessional Practice and Education, working with St. Louis College of Pharmacy, Goldfarb School of Nursing, and all disciplines at Washington University School of Medicine to develop curriculum and measure impact of interprofessional programs. I am grateful for Dr. Taft's role as my mentor in my time here at Washington University, and am pleased to now turn the time over to him.
Thanks, Megan. You did kind of set bar a little high, though, so I hope I can live up to it. Good afternoon and welcome, graduates, family, friends, and my esteemed staff and faculty colleagues. It's truly my privilege to be speaking here today, on a day where we recognize our newest professional colleagues as they move from the didactic curriculum to fieldwork and beyond. I cannot express how humbled and appreciative I am to be the faculty speaker for the class of 2022, a collective of individuals who completed their professional training during the heart of the COVID-19 pandemic and who have inspired us all with their resilience, kindness, flexibility, hard work, and grace through uncertain and ever-changing times. As I thought about what I wanted to say today, I struggled a bit, shocker, right? To find a theme that adequately represented a message that would resonate with the audience and with you, my graduating friends, with whom I've had the pleasure of learning with and from for the past 2 to 3 years. I reflected on the legacy of my father and mother, both teachers who influenced me in equally great measure. I thought about the various leadership roles I've held and how they have fulfilled me, humbled me, and taught me the value of failing forward. I thought about all my occupations, the interests and passions that feed and challenge me. I pondered musical allegories and metaphors. I considered my love of sport and the magnificent game of basketball, which you all know that I coached for many years. I marveled at how I'd become a fan and a grateful fan of the wonderful sport of lacrosse and the joy of camaraderie and the healing that the medicine game has brought to both of our sons. And as an aside, in a proud dad moment, you knew I had to do this. Our youngest high school team starts its postseason quest for the state championship playoffs in Missouri tomorrow. So go Falcons. And of course, you all know I just had to at least consider how I could weave some witty weather wisdom into my address. After all that reflection, though, one thing stood out clearly, more so than the others. In nearly everything I have done in my life, as a student, parent, coach, occupational therapist, academic, at its essence lies education. I am an educator, an imperfect one to be sure, with still so much to improve and explore. So it is within the teaching and learning dynamic that I draw upon for my message to you today. A teaching philosophy statement is not an easy task to complete. You should know. I believe I asked you to write one. Such a statement conveys one's beliefs, intentions, and actions as an educator, as well as what one thinks works and doesn't work in learning situations. In my teaching philosophy, there are a few concepts I think are appropriate to discuss briefly, and I do mean that. I only have 10 minutes, and everyone in this room knows that brevity is not my strong suit. Right, Shannon? Shannon's laughing. She knows. She warned me. I honestly, though, believe that these thoughts will matter deeply as you embark upon a career in occupational therapy. Because you see, OT and teaching are one and the same. Whether you are a clinician, educator, or a scientist, you are teaching and learning every day. It's at the very core of what we do. So with that in mind, let's talk a bit about the wisdom contained in the teaching and learning process. I'll start with a quick lightning round of thoughts based upon the principles of curriculum and instructional design. Remember those? Everybody's like, oh no, what's he going to say? And how did he fit that into a graduation speech? Well, we'll see. So first, when you're working with your clients, what's the first step in backwards design? Identify your must-haves and nice-to-haves. You cannot do it all, so do what yields the most benefit for your learner, and that includes your clients and their families. Those must-haves become your goals, developed in collaboration with clients and families and students. Find the hook that engages and motivates your clients and learners. Explain the why of new learning to your clients and ask them to do the same from their point of view. Please remember that you and your clients are co-learners. You grow as they do, but in different ways. Remember, every therapeutic encounter has an introduction, the middle of learning activities, and a closing. Remember, the bookends counts for therapy too. And always check for understanding and ask for feedback. You can even feel free to borrow the sticky thought and muddy point if you want. It's okay. I won't charge any royalties. Now I'd like to shift gears and discuss a little bit more in depth some philosophical aspects of education that I feel have bearing on your careers as occupational therapists. Here my inspiration comes from two touchstones who have heavily influenced my beliefs about teaching and learning, Ted Brameld and Gert Biesta. Theodore Brameld was a later contemporary of the famous philosopher John Dewey, and his career spanned from the mid-1930s until the early 1980s. Brameld was what was called a Reconstructionist educator who suggested that schools at all levels should prepare citizens to be advocates for social justice and active participants in democracy, and that education was the vehicle for social change. Brameld was a firm believer in the importance of global communities and that the solidarity of human needs was the true end of education. Think Maslow here, but on a collective scale. So you might fairly ask, what in the world does this Reconstructionist view of education mean for me personally and professionally? Some context might be helpful here. For a sizable chunk of its existence, the profession of occupational therapy and its practice was focused on individual occupational performance, which is obviously not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself, obviously. But you will forge your careers in a time where many global crises demand everyone's attention. Systemic racism, mis and disinformation, pandemics, war and conflict, resource scarcity, and none of these is more urgent than the existential crisis of climate change. The advent of systems theory and its influence in the development of the PEOP model sparked a shift in our focus to include the environment, at first mostly the built environment, which also expanded to the social and natural environments. A corresponding move towards a socio-cultural perspective of health have also expanded the profession's scope to include communities, organizations, and populations. What's the point, you might ask again, fairly enough. The point is that even as you practice in your individual careers, regardless of setting, you do so in a much larger context. And that context requires of you additional action. What this means is that your clients and their families are part of a wider integrated community. And how might that impact what you do? Well, we don't have time for an in-depth discussion, but I do have a few ideas. When you advocate for their clients, it's not just for them and their microsystem, it's also for the greater community. And by the way, did you know it's a hidden rule of every graduation faculty speech to have to include Bronfenbrenner? Just thought I'd let you know. These are facts. Individual well-being and community and global well-being are inextricably linked. I'm not suggesting that every one of you need to be outright activists all the time. But the time is upon us where we must advocate for policies and legislation at societal levels that impact the well-being of our clients as they live within their communities. Advocacy in its many forms is no longer something that's simply personal choice. It's a professional and ethical responsibility. You will serve clients and communities that are underrepresented and underserved. And so it's not only in their specific circumstances that you must focus. The needs and human rights of marginalized groups has to be a part of what I would call your extended treatment plan. Within your means, you must address socio-political conditions that adversely affect what our clients need and want to do in their everyday lives. You're again likely thinking, well, Steve, this sounds great, but it's not reimbursable and doesn't necessarily fall within productivity metrics. Well, that's the tough part. Chances are that much of this work won't be done while you're earning your salary. Instead, these acts of solidarity might need to become new occupations for you as a citizen within collectives both community and global. Volunteer and get involved with your communities. Advocate, march, reflect, donate, write letters, run for office. Consider not just the impact of climate change on human occupation, but also the impact of individual and collective occupations on the planet. For our old friend Ted Brameld, the local is the global, and I'm hoping you can carry that thought with you as you move forward. The second touchstone I'd like to talk briefly about, and you've heard about this gentleman before, is Gert Biesta. And Biesta has written extensively about what he calls the beautiful risk of education. And for Biesta, teaching always involves risk. The risk is not that teachers might fail because they aren't qualified or attempt something which flops. And believe me, I've seen quite a few flops in my own teaching. The risk is not that teaching strategies are not sufficiently based on scientific evidence. The risk is not that learners might fail because they're not working hard enough or lacking motivation. On the contrary, the risk is there because education is not about filling a bucket, but about lighting a fire. The risk is there because education is not an interaction between robots, but an encounter between human beings. The risk is there because learners are not to be seen as objects to be molded or disciplined, but as subjects of action and responsibility. The risk is there because education is simply not a transmission of information, but an ongoing conversation between co-learners where the results are transformational, even emancipatory. So in educational practice and in occupational practice, please remember, your future work as clinicians is without a doubt education. And in education, we have for decades seen an increasing focus on productivity, measurement, and stability. Now, don't get me wrong. These things are not without merit. Indeed, they are necessary and realistically are embedded in the systems in which we practice. However, I would argue that these priorities have taken some of the risk out of the therapist-client encounter. You see, there's risk in genuine therapeutic use of self. There is risk in acting as a partner rather than the expert. There is risk in being vulnerable. There is risk in recognizing dismantling power dynamics. There is risk in tapping into creativity to address the unique needs of our clients. There is risk in confronting trauma and in being truly inclusive in the face of our own implicit biases. But the risk is the space in the therapeutic encounter where both clients and therapists as co-learners grow in their doing, being, belonging, and becoming. The risk, I hope you can see, is what really matters. That said, taking risk isn't necessarily easy. It can bring about anxiety and frustration. It takes time. It can test one's resolve and confidence. But trust me, it's worth it. And I just realized I still have my mask on because I forgot to take it off. It's too late now, Steve. Keep rolling. I was like, oh, I get to take my mask off for my address, and I forgot. I was too excited to talk to you. Well, I'm just going to keep on going. Now, you all know I could wax philosophic for days, and believe me, nobody wants that because we all have important business to attend to here. But I do need to bring our conversation to a close. Each of you is unique in wonderful ways, but in common, you all share talent, creativity, passion, empathy, and a strong work ethic. I have absolutely no doubt you will be successful by whatever metric suits your soul. Many graduation speeches implore graduates to go forth and do great things. But my invitation to you is not to do great things, but to do human things. Actions that prioritize the well-being of the people on the planet we all depend on for our survival. I wish you all the best. Keep on learning, keep on teaching, and most importantly, be risk takers. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for reminding us that risk matters. Next, the graduates have selected their classmates to speak to you today, and it's my honor to introduce this year's student speakers. First, I would like to introduce Stephen Lau. Stephen earned his Bachelor of Science in Occupational Therapy at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University in 2016 and joined us in 2017 to pursue his PhD. Stephen seeks to be a career scientist using state-of-the-art technology to develop interventions that support people's occupational choices. Stephen studied under the mentorship of Dr. Carolyn Baum in the Community Engagement Laboratory, where he has focused on the role of motivation as it supports activity engagement and how depression moderates the relationship in people with stroke. His goal is to design future interventions that use motivational techniques to support occupational performance and participation. His expertise in statistics has contributed substantially to ongoing work to understand functional cognition. He leaves Washington University to do his postdoctoral studies at the University of Pittsburgh with Dr. Elizabeth Skidmore, with a special emphasis on learning how to design and implement complex behavioral studies. Stephen is proud to be the newest international student graduating from the Rehabilitation and Participation Science PhD program, and we are so proud of him and his accomplishments. Please join me in welcoming Stephen as the 2022 PhD student speaker.
Thank you for the beautiful introduction, Dr. Berg. Hello, everyone. Today I see a lot of happy faces. I see a lot of passionate, wonderful occupational therapists that's going to contribute greatly to our society. And it reminds my time when I get my OT degree was back in 5 years, 6, 7, never mind. I shouldn't have brought up that. Yeah, anyways, congratulations, class of 2022. After accumulation of years of hard work, you are graduating from one of the finest programs in the nation. So please enjoy this moment. You deserve this. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to speak to you all. Charles Dickens once said, "No one is useless in this world who lightens the burdens of another." As an occupational therapist, I have been genuinely impressed by our profession, how our profession can offer a helping hand to those in need. Our profession has emphasized evidence-based practice, which has inspired me to travel 8,000 miles, flying 18 hours, take 3 flights to pursue my PhD here. Today, I'm going to give you 2 messages that I have learned from my training. No big deal, just 2 messages. My first message is about staying up to date. You should stay up to date with the latest knowledge. Each year, there are 1.8 million articles that are being published. And over the past few decades, our science of OT has been booming. Some of the new evidence supports what we have been believing in OT, and some rejects. Keeping up with the latest knowledge allows you to provide the best care for your patients. You should also stay up to date with the big picture. For instance, advancing the use of technology is one of the current goals of the NIH on rehabilitation, and several laws have been recently passed to facilitate the incorporation of technologies into our healthcare practice. These changes have an impact on you and your patients. By keeping yourself up to date, you can equip yourself well and be always ready for the changes that come to your way. My second message is about persistence. As you are celebrating your beautiful, shining milestone today, I also hope that you can take a moment to appreciate your persistence in the face of adversity, failure, and obstacles that you have encountered on your climb. They were the valuable learning opportunities that made you a stronger person to embrace your triumph today. Everything will be okay in the end. If this is not okay, it is not the end. In retrospect, it is totally okay that I failed my GRE English test 4 times before I got into this program. It is totally okay that my paper has been rejected 3 times by 3 different journals in a row. That's totally okay because I still make it here to speak to you all. Yep, keep your faith because you will come to realize how close you were when you were about to give up. Take responsibility for your failure, but never let them define you. So, those are my 2 messages for you. I would like to end by thanking Dr. Baum, who got me into this program and provided me with the best mentorship I could ever ask for. I would also like to thank all the faculty members for providing the top quality education to your students. I would like to thank the OTD and the Msot students for providing me the opportunity to teach you and also teaching me as I was able to teach you. I would like to thank all the staff for making our learning here a pleasing experience. Finally, I would like to thank my family and friends for their unconditional support. With that, congratulations, graduates. Spread your wings and fly up high. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. Next, it is my privilege to introduce Stephanie Judisky, who was chosen this year as the class speaker for the OTD class. Stephanie is a 2019 summa cum laude graduate of the University of Florida with a Bachelor of Science degree in Health Science and a minor in Disabilities in Society. During her time at WashU, Stephanie was heavily involved in student activities as well as research on campus. She is the founder of both the WashU OT Hispanic Latinx Student Initiative and the WashU OT Peer Mentorship Program. She served as Secretary and Cultural Committee member for the Washington University Student OT Association and was a WashU OT Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Student Representative. Stephanie was honored as a future leader in occupational therapy by the program, as well as the Pauline Sid Schultz Scholar. She has continued the work of the Schultz family as part of the Community Engagement Lab under the mentorship of Dr. Carolyn Baum, where she studied the impact of self-efficacy, resilience, and values on participation among stroke survivors and those with Parkinson's disease during COVID. Stephanie was selected to present her research at the World Federation of Occupational Therapy Conference in Paris, France this year. Stephanie is full of life, is curious, and has brought her intellect and passion to the profession of occupational therapy. There is never a challenge she won't take on. She will be recognized as a leader in OT in its 2nd century. We will be proud to call her our graduate. It is my pleasure to introduce Stephanie as your OTD class speaker.
Wow, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. Hello, peers, parents, and professors. I'm honored and humbled to be standing before you today to deliver the commencement address for the graduating class of 2022. Grad school is a time to make new friends, acquire novel skills, obtain new knowledge, and apparently also a time to face a catastrophic pandemic. Now, while this is not the graduate experience we all envisioned, it was an experience that tested us in ways we never thought possible. From adjusting to online learning and hosting social events on virtual platforms, we navigated through a river littered with rocks and driftwood. They got it. Through unprecedented times and unimaginable adversity, your resilience and perseverance helped you achieve this incredible milestone. To the parents and families of the graduating class, today I want to acknowledge your relentless support and your sacrifices. As a Hispanic woman and first-generation graduate, I watched as my family sacrificed everything to help me achieve my dreams and have access to the opportunities they wish they had when they were my age. And on behalf of my peers, we thank you for celebrating this moment with us and for making the decisions necessary to facilitate our success. To our faculty and staff, we thank you. You taught us that occupational therapy is both the art and the science of helping people live meaningful lives. You ingrained in us the person-first perspective, whereby we ask people what matters to them and not what is the matter with them. And like a kaleidoscope, we learned that our profession is beautiful, complex, and constantly changing. And every time we shake up the instrument or look at it in a slightly different light, we find new patterns in a different arrangement of the same pieces. The magic of a kaleidoscope is similar to our time in grad school. It was beautiful, unique, and formative, however fleeting it might have been. You provided us with the tools and the blueprint to identify our why, define our purpose, and pursue our passions, and we would not be the incredible professionals we are today without your support and guidance. And to the OTD class, while most of us may not stand up when asked, "Is there a doctor on this plane?" My hope is that you continue to mold yourself into the professional and the person you have always envisioned. I hope that you continue to cultivate your legacy, leaving your footprints behind for the next generation of practitioners to follow. And just as we look up to our incredibly talented faculty members and clinical instructors, I hope that you can find solace in knowing that one day an OT student will look up to you. So graduates, this address is for you. This is your moment. This is your day to reminisce, to celebrate, and to look forward to what lies ahead on your journey. These words are for you, for your loved ones, and for mine, for my family sitting among you today, para mis abuelos, and for the little girl who dreamed of being where I am right now. I leave you with the sentiment that we are rockets shooting through the sky to discover and define our place in the world. We are meteors carving our path in a vast and unexplored realm, and we are stars shining powerfully and purposefully. I challenge you all to never stop dreaming and to never stop learning. The sky is not the limit, it is just the beginning. Congratulations, class of 2022, we did it.
Thank you, Stephanie. Finally, I'm happy to introduce Megan Proffitt, who was chosen to speak for the Msot class. Megan earned her undergraduate degree in exercise science with a minor in gerontology from Brigham Young University in 2020. While here in the OT program, she served as the student board member for the Gateway Housing Service Project and was a volunteer coach for the Disabled Athletes Sports Association. She also worked with the St. Patrick Center to develop and implement a 6-week mindfulness and stress reduction program. As part of her MSOT to PhD option that she chose, Megan worked on her scholarly project with Dr. Steve Taft in the Innovations in Education group, where she completed a qualitative study on the learning experiences of neurodiverse graduate students. Megan is a true lifelong learner, ever curious and always seeking to gain new insights to help others. Her kind nature, orientation towards learning, and active engagement in the community will motivate her clients and future students to reach their occupational potential. It is my privilege to introduce Megan Proffitt as your MSOT class speaker.
Such a generous introduction. I am so happy to be here. Both before and after Theraball, which is OT prom, there was serious consideration of making this allotted time an interpretive dance. The time needed for each self-nominated backup dancer to safely come on stage would have been more than we could fit in. So knowing we had limited time and space, I decided for a slightly less entertaining but safer method, and hopefully equally impactful. Growing up, I often heard my parents talk about the ability to learn from others and the eternal search for learning and understanding. There's always more to learn about ourselves, about others, about the world around us. I remember my dad sharing in various forms a quote by Karl R. Popper: "While differing widely in the various little bits we know, in our infinite ignorance, we are all equal." Now that might feel a little bit overwhelming, and it certainly could lead to an exquisite interpretive dance. Infinite ignorance? That's immense. It means we need to keep learning and seeking. Let's be willing to ask the questions and seek for the understanding that perhaps we think we would already know if we had done more of the reading, or were a little smarter, or had gained more experience by landing that internship our friend had. Or, on the flip side, Let's seek that understanding for the things we think we would already know if only the course were more organized, or the CI were more structured, or the speaker were more engaging, or the audience were better listeners. Believe me, I have found myself on both sides of this struggle that leads us to believe that we have nothing to gain from the people around us, a side that leads to believing my own inadequacies keep me from being ready to learn, or the side that leads me to think that my learning is dependent on the actions of others. But think about what we have to gain even when, especially when, the situation isn't perfect. Our time with virtual education has certainly shown us that. Don't get me wrong, more reading can be done, certainly, and better lectures can be designed. In fact, it's powerful to see those potentials for change. It's important, and we're pretty good at it. Now let's let that drive us towards better questions, clearer learning, and more enlightened communication, looking to discover, where are my blind spots? What part of the picture don't I see yet? Each one of us is going to bring tremendous strength and new opportunities to the clients we work with and the communities we are part of. From those of us who may have held class over more than once with one last thing, to those who may have only commented once or twice in lectures, we need you. The world needs you. And they need us to come with humble eagerness to learn, to share, to create together a more accessible, equitable, and beautiful world. Thank you for showing me that. And thank you for being my classmates, friends, colleagues, peers, faculty here. Thank you, class of 2022. Congratulations.
Thank you, Megan. We will now recognize those who have completed the academic requirements for the degree of Doctor of Rehabilitation and Participation Science. The student's name will be read by Dr. Jesse Bricker, and his PhD advisor will hood him.
Good afternoon. This is the fun part, right? Dr. Carolyn Baum will now come forward to hood her graduate. Stephen Lau.
Stay right here. We will now recognize those who have completed the academic requirements for the degree of Doctor of Occupational Therapy. The names will be read by Dr. Jesse Bricker, and their doctoral advisor will hood them.
Dr. Parul Bakshi will now come forward to hood her graduate. Emily Lynn Bowman. Dr. Peggy Barco will now come forward to hood her graduates. Brianna Rochelle Brostuff. Rachel Alexandria Reindl. Dr. Carolyn Baum will now come forward to hood her graduates. Stephanie Judisky. Those darn hoods, man. Michaela Christine Mix. Dr. Christine Berg will now come forward to hood her graduates. Allie Marie Broaddus. Emma Elizabeth Burry. Olivia Lisette DePaul. Emily Marie Gray. Hannah Marie May Clute. Claire Colleen Lassiter. Lindsay Elise Shepherdson. Rachel Antoinette Thomason. Vivian Winnie Wong. Dr. Christine Berg will now hood Dr. Sarah Cheatham Oberle's graduates. Brittany Ann Grimes. Alexandria Elizabeth Snell. Dr. Lisa Connor will now hood her graduates. Rachel Yahweh Graves. Elizabeth Caroline Lynch. Dr. Jess Dashner will now come forward to hood her graduates. Olivia Erin Daler. Lauren Patricia Wynn. Dr. Erin Foster will now come forward to hood her graduates. Lindsay Elizabeth Curry. Juliana Margaret Hudson. And I skipped a line. Sorry, Monica. Monica Ruth Fishbein. Dr. Vicky Kaskudis will now come forward to hood her graduates. Delamore Aguilar. Julia Ann Watson. Dr. Allison King will now come forward to hood her graduates. Annamail Minachi Manohar. Audrey Marie Troublehorn. Dr. Kathy Knietman will now come forward to hood her graduate. Caleb James Trout. Dr. Wanda Mahoney will now come forward to hood her graduates. B. C. Burns. Grace Ann Franco. Dr. Carrie Morgan will now come forward to hood her graduate. Ashley Marie Flynn. Dr. Pat Nellis will now come forward to hood her graduates. Melody Woodward Cornell. Monica Quinn Prindyville. Sarah Paisley Rhodes. Brianna Lynn Woods. Dr. Monica Perlmutter will now come forward to hood her graduates. Callan Ray Barrick. Rebecca Diane Johnson. Dr. Benjamin Phillip will now come forward to hood his graduates. Daniel Hannah Grace. Delaney Brooke McIntyre. Dr. Sue Tucker will now come forward to hood her graduates. Kaylee Marie Suko. Erin Elizabeth Tormey. Dr. Christine Berg will now come forward to hood Dr. Quinn Tominski's graduates. Kate Ann Finley. Emily Jean Prinz. Samantha Marie Stritch. Amanda Lee Wilson. Dana Michelle Zaveski. Dr. Carla Walker will now come forward to hood her graduates. Caroline Cooker Booth. Alicia Ann Bregeman. Shelby Lauren Martin.
Wait, where am I here? We just did the doctorate. We will now recognize those who have completed the academic requirements for the Master of Science in Occupational Therapy. The students' names will be read by Dr. Jesse Bricker, and Dr. Monica Perlmutter will hood them.
Sophie Zoe Belkin Sessler. Emily Elizabeth Bain. Haley Jo Brown. Oliver Gray Carnazzo. Chelsea Lynn Champion. Emily Ann Coughlin. Allison Chase Dahl. Cody Ward Dressler. Jesus Antonio Enriquez. Madison Constance Fief. Delaney Elizabeth Fretwell. Marlene Beth Gingras. Laura Angela Green. Jacqueline Marie Hardy. Clarissa May Manalo Hernandez. Johanna Maria Hilpush. Sydney Brooke Hirsch. Davis Eric Andre Holmes. Cordell Brian Hutchins. Brittany Johanna Huck. Rachel Marie Kissero. Eric Julian Klein. Emily Mara Croth. Megan Levaniak. Mackenzie Ray Martin. Brittany Nethercott. Dakota J. Neeson. Anchi Grace Ong. Madison Page Pichet. Megan Leilani Prophet. Fiona Marie Roddy. Matthew Luis Silva. Darcy Elaine Sweet. Zoe Rose Zeiger. And we missed Stephen Lau's diploma, which might be important later. Stephen Lau. Congratulations, graduates.
I would like to now invite Dr. Connor back to the podium to make her closing remarks.
Congratulations, everyone. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize a faculty member who's retiring this fall, Dr. Vicki Kaskudis. Vicki has been with the program for 25 years. She's held many roles in the program over the years, including academic fieldwork coordinator, and for all of you, you know how hard that job is, and especially Jesse. Most of you know her as an expert in biomechanics and hand therapy. She's touched the lives and careers of many of the students who have passed through our doors, from serving as course director for our anatomy course, running a student hand therapy clinic for years, and working with students to author the AOTA work practice guidelines. She's earned national recognition, being inducted as a fellow of the American Occupational Therapy Association in 2014, and serving on the National Occupational Research Agenda Construction Sector Council since 2011. Within Washington University, she was elected to serve on the executive committee of the Faculty Council of the Medical School in 2018, and was the first faculty member in occupational therapy to join the Washington University Digital Learning Group, even serving as co-chair from 2016 to 2019. She served the program in OT in various ways during her long career with us, including chairing the program evaluation committee. On behalf of the program, I want to let Dr. Kaskudas know how much we have appreciated her service. We'll miss you, Vicki. Graduates, you're being called to a profession that needs you now more than ever. I think almost every speaker has said that. It's absolutely true. People have occupational performance challenges due to chronic disease, disability, poverty, climate chaos, violence, and aging. Your service to humanity is vital to humanity's success and well-being. You will serve individuals and their families by enabling people to do what they need and want to do most. You'll help communities be more inclusive and accessible to people with a wide variety of abilities by identifying obstacles and working to create environments that support occupation. You will advocate for new social policies that give voice to the voiceless and create innovations enabling barrier-free living. Your training here at the Washington University Program in Occupational Therapy has prepared you to make the difference that the world needs right now. I am so excited to leave the future of the profession in your hands. As you leave us for the last bit of your educational journey and get out into practice, I want you to remember two things. First, you have prepared yourself for today by becoming scholars of the profession. You've mastered literature to guide and bolster your critical reasoning skills. Every new idea, every new initiative, every new intervention approach, every new research investigation must begin with learning everything you can about what came before that moment. Lifelong learning is essential to your continued professional development throughout your career. Being a practitioner with fresh ideas and perspectives will require you to search for and engage with the literature and with other colleagues outside of your organizations. Value and share this part of your professional identity, cherish this part of your professional identity and responsibility. Share the results of your knowledge quest freely with others. Second, and most importantly, do not forget that your clients are people with individual occupational performance goals and needs. Take the time to get to know them as a whole person. Understand their occupational histories and profiles. Understand what they value in order to generate outcomes that are meaningful to them. I'd like to leave you with a poem that has special meaning to me as an occupational therapist. Yes, believe it or not, it's not really an OT poem, but you'll see, it hits all the notes. This poem reinforces that everyone seeks to be of use to others. It's a central feature of being human. The poem is called To Be of Use, and it's by Marge Piercy. The people I love the best jump into the work head first without dallying in the shallows and swim off with sure strokes almost out of sight. They seem to become natives of that element, the black, sleek heads of seals bouncing like half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire must be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn, are put in museums, but you know that they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. This poem reminds me not only do we want to be of use to others, but that our clients too want to be of use. I hope that you keep this at the top of your minds as you help your clients engage in their most cherished occupations. You are the future leaders of the profession. I look forward to hearing about your successes, how you're leading the way forward in practice, research, policy, and advocacy. I particularly look forward to continuing to engage with you through our alumni activities. The faculty and staff are proud to have been part of your growth, and we are proud to call you colleagues. Congratulations and warmest wishes.